And it's Ken Kreitzer for CBSI Services, talking business today from my home office in White Plains, New York. CBSI Services has provided benefit programs to the credit card industry, to banks for almost 40 years, and we're based in Harrison, New York. Now, today we have the great opportunity to talk with Geoff Beckstrom, who is the Operations VP at VisualCue in Utah. I have a chance to talk with Geoff today out in Saratoga Springs, Utah. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Ken. Thanks for having me on.
Our pleasure. Now, we have a chance. We manage a bunch of contact centers for our bank clients at CBSI, have for a long time. They've been taking a lot of calls on programs, especially related to travel cancellations the last few weeks. And you've got there's been a lot of discussion in the industry about moving to remote agents because you can't have 100 agents in a call center today, especially around our area. So trying to move to remote locations is a very important objective, and trying to supervise remote agents is a challenge. Tell us a little bit about your company and the solution you have to help contact centers.
Yeah, I appreciate that opportunity, Ken. So the company is VisualCue, and we've actually been around for over 9 years. We built the original platform actually in response to an RFP, a request for proposal from the Pentagon. And that original RFP asked for a product that could accept thousands of data points and then apply some calculations to all of those data points, and then basically put them in a green, yellow, red kind of a world map. So you can imagine calculating thousands of data points for individual countries, and then coming out to a calculation that that country is green, or it's yellow, or it's red for being a hotspot. From that contract, we moved to doing some supply chain management for the United States Postal Service, and then actually doing some fleet management in being able to visually track water deliveries on trucks and different things. Now, a little over a year ago, we decided to enter the contact center vertical, and we built an application that we call CueFit. That's CueFit, which is an application built off of that platform that allows agents to see in real time their KPIs. So how long they're spending on a call, how long their ACW or their after call work, how long they're spending taking notes or preparing to move from one call to the next. And then depending on the type of contact center they're in, whether it's a sales center, we'll track their closing ratios and their revenue numbers. If they're a support center, we'll track their escalations or their CSAT, their customer satisfaction scores that they get back. And we're able to provide that agent with that same green, yellow, or red progress report. And what you have is, so many agents in the contact center industry don't have access to this data, or they maybe only have access to it once a week, or maybe even only once a month when they maybe have a sit-down meeting with a team leader. And now they're getting daily real-time access to seeing that data, where agents can now literally control kind of their own destiny. And they can see, oh, okay, I'm yellow in this area, and they've got the rest of their shift to maybe improve the amount of time that they're spending on their ACW or their calls, or take a shorter afternoon break to make up for the fact that they went a few minutes extra on their lunch break, and be in a position to where they're not caught by surprise days or weeks later in an employee evaluation meeting, and where this can affect their shift bids or their bonusing or their commissions programs. And so, we've got all kinds of examples of not just performance improvement, because the agents have much more immediate access to this data, but just overall job satisfaction in having the ability to see and have a much more direct effect on this performance data.
Well, it sounds like you've got a lot of important KPIs, performance measures that you track that can help manage and help a representative to improve their performance. Are there particular measures that you find that you look at all the time?
So definitely within the contact center, we're looking at that handle time and the ACW. I mean, we've got, when you start talking about larger BPOs where you're talking about tens of thousands, if not even 100,000 plus agents, and they're taking anywhere from 100 to maybe even 150 or 200 calls per day, and you can improve their after call work, the time they spend between calls, by just a few seconds. You know, maybe you take a 45-second average down to a 38-second average, but you start multiplying that 7 seconds you're gaining times 100 calls times tens of thousands of agents, and that adds up to literally millions of dollars in efficiency savings for some of these larger contact center companies. So those are definitely some of the very common across the board KPIs. If it's a support center, we're definitely looking at customer satisfaction scores and NPS scores. If it's a sales center, we're definitely looking at closing ratios and revenue numbers.
Yes, all very important measures. Now, as we said, there's a big shift going on to meet the current COVID virus situation towards remote agents. And I know you have a special introduction for contact centers during this period.
We do. So even prior to understanding this coronavirus outbreak, we were developing what we call the communication center. And this is an ability to utilize the CueFit platform for team leaders and supervisors to send direct messages to the agents. One of the key features of the CueFit product is the CueFit bar, and what that is it's a slim bar that sits at the top of an agent's machine, where they're able to see a timer that kind of tells them, and that timer will flash green, yellow, red in real time to let that agent know how they're performing in real time on a call. And what the communication center does is it allows supervisors to send ticker tape messages that will literally scroll across that screen. And what that allows you to do is to get messages in front of your agents without interrupting them, even when they might be on a phone call. And you might even find that you're able to give them timely information on urgent issues that might help them on the very call that they're on, right? A server's down, credit cards can't be processed. Sure. We just recently have started working with states' 211 programs. And so, you know, the mayor or the governor has just had their press conference and introduced something, and therefore you might expect to see a rise in call volume about this specific issue. And you're able to get that in front of the agents. What's different with our tool when maybe comparing to things like Slack or even Zoom or Microsoft Teams is it is one way only. It's top down. You send it to the agents, and we provide read reports. So the team leaders and supervisors can see which agents have clicked on or seen these messages, which agents have not. And you know that these messages are not getting lost in a string of replies. You know, saying, oh, saw it, got it, or even, you know, smiley face emojis or whatever. Sure. And so I actually have a lot of customers that are utilizing Slack, but they're utilizing Slack for more of kind of the social capabilities of interacting with each other. And they're letting their agents know that the most important and urgent messages are going to come through that CueFit Communication Center system. Okay. Now, to just add specifically, because of the current situation with the coronavirus and a lot of contact center agents being legally required to send agents home, we are providing that tool for free through at least the 1st of July. And so if you go to CueFit.com, that's CueFit.com, you can then be redirected to a form where you can register to then install and set up that program for free.
And now, how does this work as far as working in conjunction with the software platforms that a contact center is using today?
So if you decide to then upgrade and not just use the communication center, can work on its own, and it doesn't necessarily connect to any of the data. It's just for those messages, okay. But it works perfectly in conjunction. So we do have some integrations with some of the common contact center cloud solutions, Five9, InContact, Grupo NGN, Avaya, and Cisco. And so we can connect directly into the custom reports or the API calls that provide us those common data center features, such as number of calls made, average handle time, the ACW. And then we can also work directly with our customers to set up automated CSV reports that get sent to a secure FTP site, where we're able to generate additional information that maybe it's coming from a CRM or your attendance, being able to check the schedule adherence and those sorts of things.
Okay. And you mentioned that the software is able to help clients address attrition of their customer base based on the kinds of calls that are coming in. How does the software CueFit help a customer like a bank that we might work with on reducing customer attrition?
So what we can definitely do is provide the agents with that real-time data so they can get a sense of how they're performing on those calls and meeting the needs or the expectations of those people that are calling in to retain them as credit card customers. And I think just, closing that feedback loop and making it as close to real time as possible, it really empowers those agents to feel like they're seeing the difference that they're able to make, on a day-to-day basis, rather than on a week or even a multi-week delay of, sitting down and saying, hey, do you remember that guy you spoke to 3 weeks ago and the call started out and you got to really kind of rack your brain. You're able to see that in real time.
Well, it's so important, and you mentioned there's some other applications for the CueFit, including helping track fleets of trucks that are out on the road.
That is correct. Yeah. So we work with a large water distribution company, and we actually will have map overlays where we can track the routes that are being taken and create efficiencies in that. Also provide real-time updates both to the supervisors that are maintaining and watching that fleet, but then also to the consumers or the end users, so they can see the progress of when those deliveries will show up. And again, you've got that combination of being able to look at that historical data and analyze that for efficiencies, but then also the real-time nature of that data that's going to the driver, to the fleet managers, or to the consumers, where they can make real-time decisions to improve immediate efficiencies.
Okay, and I know there's a lot of information and ways to look at some of the demonstrations that you have of the CueFit on your website. What will someone find when they go to your website, CueFit.com?
So you go to CueFit.com. First thing you're going to see is our offer for the free communication tool and the ability to fill that out. You'll also learn much more about the product itself, some case studies that we've had with some successful customers in improving closing and sales ratios, improving retention of agents, and essentially, kind of learn more about the product. And then if you go to VisualCue.com, that's where you can learn a little bit more about the original platform and kind of the full history of the company.
Very good. And I always like to ask my guests a little bit about how they got into their career. What have been some of the steps along your career path, Geoff?
Oh boy. So I spent 5 years in the Army National Guard, and honestly thought that I was going to make a career out of that. And I ended up receiving a medical discharge out of that, and kind of had to choose a new career. I ended up working for an e-learning company and became a Microsoft certified instructor, which then led to 5 years in the video game industry, where I lived in Vegas and worked on some video game development. Unfortunately, some funding ran out on that studio, and I came to Utah for kind of the booming tech culture we have here, and ended up joining VisualCue. So I am a certified Scrum Master, and I've spent kind of over 15 years. What I love doing is almost being like a translator, where I feel very comfortable talking to developers in their language and understanding what they're doing to build software and do with that. But I'm also just as comfortable meeting with a sales and marketing team, or even with customers and end users, and being able to talk in their language from a non-technical standpoint of explaining products and services. And so that's kind of been the crux of my career.
Well, thank you for your service in the Army National Guard. We're doing some work with them here in New York. They're doing a great job with the emergency situation. Very close to home, just down the road in New Rochelle, and of course in New York City. Always like to recognize the National Guard, the citizen soldiers that jump into so many emergency situations. Hey, just got to ask you in closing, you mentioned your work in video games, and we've seen tremendous growth in the last couple of years in eSports. Work with a college conference that's running championships now in that. Tell us about why is eSports and growing so fast right now?
Boy, I think there's a lot of reasons. One, I've got teenagers in the house, and they spend a lot more time watching YouTube or Twitch videos of other people streaming video games than they spend, actually watching movies or TV shows. I think there's an interactivity. People may or may not be familiar with the fact that the last 2 Sundays, Fox has televised NASCAR, video game NASCAR races in place of real races. And the ratings were so high that they decided that instead of making that a one-time thing, that they're going to do that for the rest of the season.
Wow.
And you think about that interactivity where you're able to watch these professional video game players, but even they have some of the professional drivers that are doing the video game style, and they're playing the exact same video game that you could go in and play and drive as a NASCAR driver yourself. And so I think there's kind of that interactivity that exists, that's an exciting level of that. And I think that can go across all the kinds of sports. And there's a certain connection. I know a lot of professional athletes that are, running online. I know a lot of NBA players are running Twitch streams where you can actually play the video game version of NBA basketball against real NBA players. And I think there's a level of connectivity that is driving a lot of that success.
It's astounding. That's food for a lot of good food for another day's discussion. Hey, just really want to thank Geoff Beckstrom from Utah-based VisualCue and CueFit.com. Has got a terrific solution to help contact centers, and great to hear about it today. And really, best wishes to you and everybody out in Utah getting through this crisis situation.
No, again, thank you for the time, Ken. And I'd be remiss if I didn't end with a solid "Go Army, beat Navy," and a shout out to all of our healthcare professionals that are just doing amazing work right now.
Absolutely, all across the country, and a lot of them right very close to home here in White Plains, New Rochelle, and New York City. Geoff, thank you so much. We'll do it again, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This is Ken Kreitzer for CBSI Services Talking Business from my home office in White Plains, New York. Have a good day, everybody, and stay well.